Jen, sorry, I'm just starting. I had some issues on my end here. Hey, everybody. Sorry for the delay. I've been pretty sick here the last few days, so I apologize for my voice. I just want to make sure we're live on the other end. And it looks like we are. Okay. If anyone is joining me here, please let me know if you can see and hear me on the other end. I'd appreciate that. Let me just be a second here. Let me just grab a Kleenex. Okay. If you are joining me today, we are going to be down on the ground. So range of motion is required if you did not see that in the notes. Okay, we're going to get started here. So today is like last month. I know you guys want less talking and more workout, so I'm trying to stick with that theme. Today we're down on the ground working through some 5 moves in 5 minutes is what I've titled the next 3 weeks worth of sessions. I'll be here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the next 3 weeks. And what I'd like to talk about today is upper body specific stuff. It's not all going to be a workout today. Some of it is feel good and relaxation, and there's a little bit of a line in the sand as far as using a plate for feel good and relaxation applications and fitness. And a lot of that still boils down to where you physically are starting at. So if you are unable to get down on the ground today and join me, that tells me you're probably not doing push-ups on the floor at home at this point. What I wanted to do for those of you who are doing upper body positions on your plate, working on push-ups or trying to get to those points, there's a couple of different things that can make that experience pleasant or not so pleasant. And a lot of it is just some quick little tips. We're going to start today with a little bit of a warm-up, which is going to serve more as a relaxation technique. And today I'm working on the Rumblex Plus 4D, as I typically do. Why do I like the Rumblex Plus and some of the models that I recommend? Many of you are dealing with chronic issues, and a flat plate surface is more functional, if you will. Nothing wrong with getting a curved style, but a curved style tends to present a little bit more athletic challenge. And if you are dealing with any current issues like hypermobility, you're coming from a place of poor conditioning, a flat plate surface is more functional, more like walking on the floor. So I typically recommend this type of plate. For upper body today, we're only going to be using 2 tools. We're going to be using a foam roller, and I've got a yoga mat here as well. I may or may not be using the yoga mat, but if you have issues getting down on the ground because your knees hurt when you are on them, a yoga mat, some old school volleyball knee pads, something to pad up the knees would be a good idea. What we are starting with today is on the knees. So we're looking something more like this than something like this. This would be fitness, okay? On a vibration plate, just like when you're standing, as we're doing today's session, of course, in oscillating movement. If you haven't followed any of my sessions recently, I'm all about going faster with less intensity, which means closer hands and feet versus wide and slow. There's a mentality that we start slow on a vibration machine, but speed is not the only factor that's contributing to your experience. And this is ultra important with upper body, especially for a lot of my ladies. If you are not overly active now and you're not doing these types of exercises now, I want to make sure that you understand how you control certain things. And the biggest thing is going to be the head vibe or the head buzz. So starting on the knees, think of this as just a relaxing application. My hands are situated under my shoulders, not wider than. Wider is more movement, more impact, more intensity. And if you're not doing push-ups now, it's not going to be a pleasant experience. Many of you are just looking to move lymph, which is something I made a note of in my description today. Anytime you're using your plate, you're increasing lymphatic movement. When you move, lymph moves. But if you want to target the upper body a little bit more specifically, learning some basics without necessarily dipping into the fitness realm can help expedite the upper body lymph a little bit more specifically. I know many of you are dealing with lymph node issues or just sluggish and blocked lymph. So the first trick with upper body is angles. So we want to make sure the elbows are bent so that the muscles in the arms are absorbing the movement. And what I'd like you to do is just at the hips, lean forward slightly so that the hands are directly below your shoulders. If your head is right above your hands or your neck, vibration, the movement, the stimulation that you feel travels straight up. So I want you just unhinging at the hips and pushing your body slightly forward until the shoulders are over the hands. You're going to minimize 95% of the head buzz. You're going to feel it more primarily in the neck and the shoulders. This is a great way to get the upper body moving a little bit more directly than if you've seen some of my other videos where I sit on a chair and put my elbows on my knees. This is a great option if you just want to maybe warm up before you're doing an upper body workout. You're just feeling sluggish, you've got swelling or other symptoms that have cropped up during the day. One thing that we're going to add on at this point, now that we're hopefully comfortable, nothing's saying you can't go with wider hands, but I recommend, I'm working at a speed today, I'm going to bring mine up to about 30. I like working with a mid-speed range. It's smoother, it's less choppier, you get more movements per second, therefore we're moving more lymph, more circulation. These machines are about reducing the amount of time that you spend doing these exercises. So when it comes to lymph, something like this, if you just wanted a good upper body lymph boost, maybe 30 seconds to a minute is probably all that you'd need. I want to show you a couple of tricks. Now that we've got some basics here, we're keeping those the shoulders above the hands. What about here? I know many of you, yes, we want to move lymph, but we want to target those good old bat wings. Or maybe this is an area that you're carrying extra swelling. By simply changing the angles of our arms, so my elbows, or if you draw them in, so I'm looking like this, but if you draw them in and get them up against the ribs, it's going to be more triceps, okay? Now, some of you at this point might already be saying, oh, Debbie, I can't do this because my wrists or my hands or... So enter accessory A. This is a pool noodle, nothing fancy. It is the larger size. It's cut the width of my plate. This is a good little tool if you do have carpal tunnel, wrist issues, and you find the angle that the wrists need to be on. Forget the floor on this machine with added stimulation. It's just not necessarily comfortable for everyone. You can use anything from little push-up assists. There's all kinds of things. But I like using a pool noodle. It gives you something to hang on to, and your wrists don't need to be at the angle that they traditionally would. So if you need a little bit of assistance, if you're having trouble with the wrist or the hands, this is an awesome option in which to do that. So same thing, it's just propping those wrists up at a little bit of a higher angle, okay? We want to pull the wrists in or the elbows in to hit those triceps, okay? So if you do not have a pull noodle, there's a number of things that I use this for, anything from working with sciatic to plantar fasciitis. This is a really good investment to incorporate with your machine. It's simply a regular swimming pool noodle that I've cut the width of the machine. I have two options. This is a smaller option that I've cut lengthways. Maybe you don't need as much. This comes in a little bit more, but sometimes you got to play with your accessories too to see what feels best for you. So we're going to keep this one out for a second, and I want to show you a little bit more on the warm-up relaxation side. So any of you that are rolling now, maybe you do rolling techniques. There's lots of ways to roll. I suggest you do some Googling or follow someone that's a little more versed with rolling. There's good ways to roll, and you can actually roll wrong and cause harm. So the reason I like using a pull noodle as opposed to a traditional roller, when you're adding the stimulus of the machine, a traditional roller, they tend to be a little too dense and they bounce all over the place. The pull noodle gives you enough support, but it also transfers the stimulation versus blocks it and just it gives, if you will. So what I like to do if you're dealing with carpal tunnel, you've got upper body swelling, you just want to stretch things out, I roll on the machine. I roll my arms. I get really bad elbows when I've been lifting too much. You turn the angles of your hands to roll the forearms more. If you're not doing something like this, this is just a really nice way. You could try this in a higher speed and oscillating. This is also pretty nice in pulsation if your machine has that mode. It's just a different feeling. There's no exact movement style or setting. It's about experimenting and seeing what feels good with you. And any of these exercises are, 45 seconds to a minute on the feel-good side, okay? And I would suggest if you are dealing with symptom management, upper body is an area of tension for you, and you have access to your machine, you could do these type of things a couple, 3 times a day. It's called a spot treatment, is what I refer to it as. And if you need some help addressing certain symptoms throughout the course of the day, let those symptoms drive. So when you ask me, well, how often can I do this on my machine, Deb? If you're only doing it under the guidelines that I've told you, which is a minute or 2 per exercise, there's really no reason you couldn't do it 5-10 times a day if you needed to. Let your symptoms drive it. So if you see the swelling increase, you're losing sensation, pain is increasing, these are all triggers that your symptoms are getting worse and you might need a fix. And what you'll find over time, if you're using this to manage those symptoms, your long-term, things will start improving and you don't need to do it as often, okay? So the next one I want to address, because this comes up a lot, is forearms on the machine. Again, there is no cookie cutter way to use a vibration plate, but if you are the type of person that wants to do forearms, a lot of people think they have to do planks this way. There's no have to, but what I do suggest when you're doing certain exercises with a vibration plate, you may want to look at modifying some of the things that you're doing. So if you want to put forearms on the machine, I absolutely suggest putting a mat on it. And your elbows, when they come in contact with the plate, are what drives the movement. That's what's driving it up to the shoulders and the neck. So typically when people get on a vibration machine, they're like this if they're putting the forearms on. And those elbows are really wide. So if we keep in mind the lesson I just talked about where wider is more movement and closer is less movement, and you've never, you're not doing lots of planks, but you think you want to, and you get on this thing with really wide hands, it's a terribly unpleasant experience. It shakes your head and your neck all over the darn place. If you do not have the ability to bring the elbows closer and reduce the intensity, I recommend practicing this on the floor and getting good on it there before you add it to a machine. From a therapeutic standpoint, this feels quite nice in the shoulders and the shoulder blades. You can play with your angles. But again, my elbows are fairly close together. I personally, and this is just a personal choice, I do not like it wide. I've got a bad shoulder. I've got neck issues, and I find it's just too aggressive for me personally. And I've been doing this 20 years. But I get all kinds of comments like, oh no, that's the way that I like to do it. That's the way that I do planks. So you must know better than me. If you like your head shaking all over the place and your neck, that's totally fine. It's not harmful. But for most people, it's enough to deter you from doing that exercise. I would suggest if you do want to do planks, you're working on planks and you can't get past the head vibe, turn yourself around. Put the feet on the plate, put the upper body on the ground. That's another exercise for a different session. But there's always a way that you can modify. Just because someone has suggested or a program has said do a plank doesn't necessarily mean that there can't be a modification done for your sensitivities or to the position itself to make it more comfortable for you to perform. Always remember that. So the next one I want to move on to is a little bit more of a stretch. So machine going at the same settings. We're working with a mid-speed range. Okay. We started out like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to back myself up and I'm going to push my chest to the floor. Many may call this a preacher's stretch, or there's a few different names. I'm not a yogi. But I love how this feels. This one, I don't mind my arms a little bit wider. My head is not part of the equation, nor is my neck. And it just moves me a little bit more. If you're super flexible and you're not feeling much of a stretch, you may need to widen the legs so you can get your chest further down towards the ground. Experiment with that. Another variation, and I do not have flexibility this way. Experiment. Play with what feels good. And many positions that you might be doing at yoga class or at the gym from an upper body perspective might be applicable. Maybe you can do them on your machine. The next exercise I kind of wanted to go over, it's one of my least favorites, is a tricep dip. I've had a few questions about it here in the last couple of weeks, and why doesn't Debbie do tricep dips? Well, I do a modification in my push-up to target those triceps, but if you really want to see me do a tricep dip, I will. Here's what I don't like for general population about tricep dips. Most people aren't doing them now, and then you're adding it into an environment that makes it more challenging. So what happens by the time most people even get into position to do the tricep dip, they're done. And you look something like this where your shoulders are up around your ears and any technique and posture has gone. So what I would suggest if you do want to start working, I guess I am bringing in one more accessory to the equation. This is my Aeroflex step. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to tee it up lengthways in front of the plate. I'm going to sit my bum down on the plate. See, I'm level with the plate. And start by just putting the hands on it. If at any point you feel you've taken on more than you're ready for, or you have issues, just remove your hands, okay? And then what we're going to do to test, where you're at with this, with your butt up on the step, you can just lift yourself off slightly. And if you feel the technique starting to go, you've got a little support here, so you're not dropping 6 inches down to the floor and completely losing the structure in your shoulders. So this, without putting a lot of body weight into it, is quite nice therapeutically. You want to try making sure those elbows, stick the girls out, nice straight spine. Okay, so we're drawing the elbows towards each other and just hold 2, 3. Elbows are bent. If this doesn't feel too challenging and you're ready to take on more mass, lift your bum up off the step. Hold 2, 3. Notice my legs are bent. So I'm not exposing the upper body to as much body weight. If I stretch my legs out here, this looks more like a traditional, and you're heavier, okay? You want to make sure that you're keeping your butt fairly close to the plate. You don't want to be out here, okay? You want the bum back here. So if you're not doing this type of an exercise now, it is a good way to get into the back of the arms. Experiment with it therapeutically before you try getting mean. And just make sure, the better your technique is, the more effective the position is going to be, but the less likely you're going to overdo or do something uncomfortable, okay? So that's just an idea. As I said, I by far prefer hitting the triceps this way, but tricep dips are completely something you can do on the machine. It's just one of those exercises that not most people are doing regularly, let alone in an environment that makes it more challenging. So another variation I wanted to show you. So if you look at my hands, the heel of your hand drives the movement when your hands are on the plate. So if I did something like this with my hands, where the heel of my hand is on the outer edges, I'm playing with the intensity. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sort of interlock my fingers so I can get the heels of the hands to a closer position. And I'm just going to lean into it. And this really feels, it opens up the chest, it opens up the shoulders. Make sure you've got a good engaged core. And again, we want to make sure those shoulders are above the hands. Back here, more head and neck shake. Slightly forward, it reduces it substantially. And just hold a good static position if you're working with these for the first time, okay? So the first move we started with was just understanding a basic push-up. Pulling those elbows in was targeting the triceps, okay? Then we moved on to forearms. Again, I don't want you thinking you can't do this. I just want to make sure you're prepared for the amount of head vibration you're going to subject yourself to. If you are working on this one, try working on bringing those elbows closer if possible. I'm pretty small up here. Many of you are not. And doing something like this is challenging. So, again, even though this might feel good from a therapeutic standpoint, once you get onto the toes, it's pretty intense. There's really no avoiding the head vibe. It's just the way the position is. I would by far prefer, if you are wanting to do planks, come up on to your hands. It's still a plank. You're getting much more upper body action, or switch it around. Start with the feet on and put the upper body on the ground as I suggested, and I have shown that one in other sessions. Next one we moved on to was a little bit of a stretch. So we had our hands here, and I brought my bum back. Preacher stretch again, whatever you want to call it. This one I do like wider hands. You know, sometimes it really depends on the position. You guys have to experiment. This is still at the speed 30, but my hands are wider. My head isn't above the plate, so it feels differently. Okay? And there's a million variations on this one. You know, you kind of feel like you need to move into certain positions after you try another one on this. Okay? And then the last one I showed you was a tricep dip. I'm not going to pull the step in to demonstrate that one again, but just make sure if you don't have the ability to do this exercise on the floor effectively for long periods, you may want to start practicing there. The step really does make it a little bit simpler to just sort of get used to the exercise without having to commit to the challenge that it presents. Okay? You are only limited by your imagination and your range of motion. And then one of the other ones that we played with, of course, and it's not really a move. It's just something I want you guys to experiment with. If you are using a pool noodle, just rolling those arms, especially if you're dealing with sensitivity issues, swelling. This is a really great way to utilize your platform from a therapeutic standpoint. I'm just going to get it going again. On this one, again, mid-speed, I was basically doing 30 on everything today. If you at any time find it's too strong or too intense, bring the hands closer to the center to reduce intensity before you reduce speed. Just give that a try for a change. Okay? I use these lots. Okay. So I want to see who's with me today. For those of you that are joining me, I hope some of that gave you some ideas. I'm looking for my coffee here. What I would like to do at this time is if you do have any upper body questions, anything related specifically to today's sessions that I can walk you through or help you navigate, now is the time. I see I've got a few of you here. Perhaps not. Perhaps you're too busy down on the ground doing your push-ups. Wouldn't that be wonderful? What else can I tell you? Upper body. It isn't something that we as ladies tend to focus on as much as maybe we should. It's a weaker part of our body than our male counterparts, and we tend to only be concerned about it, you know, when there's visuals. We don't have the tone, and it is Christmas party season, So usually toning upper body is more of a tank top season thing I like to tease about. But it is Christmas party season. We're all getting into our fancy dresses. And if you are dealing with intermittent swelling, you're not playing with upper body positions now. There's fear. 9 times out of 10, there are ways that positions can be modified to suit your sensitivities. And like I say, angle of your head and your hands is a really important thing I want you to experiment with. And I think you'll find there's a lot more control when you're on your knees. And if you're ready and you're doing these types of exercises on the floor, now you, of course, are welcome to move to toes. Adding more body weight just makes it more challenging, more fitness. Most of what we did today was feel good in 5, the theme of what I was sort of talking about with our title. And this could be 5 exercises that you're working on your own. It could be something that you add in complement to your other workout if you're looking for something a little bit longer. This would serve as a really good warm-up or a recovery if you are working on other things as far as total body aspect. These are also great modifications if you are recovering from something or you're just beginning with some of these exercises and you're not ready for a whole lot of challenge. I want to empower you guys with the understanding of how you manipulate the settings and yourself on the machine for your own personal level of comfort. And that's what a lot of it boils down to is what feels good and what doesn't feel good to you. And the head vibe is a big one for a lot of my ladies. What we tend to do when we get the stimulation into the neck and the shoulders is we resist it and we fight it. And when we fight it, we become rigid and it actually amplifies. Okay, so just relax, make sure that you're breathing. And if at any time it feels too strong, too intense, bring the hands closer and just make sure the head is just past them versus looking down upon them. That's the biggest tip I can give you. Do I have any questions today related to today's session? Maybe I've done a really good job, or maybe you did too much on the ground and it's hard to get back up to your computers. If you don't have questions, totally fine. If you have some, for those of you that are watching this perhaps on a recorded basis, if you do have questions, please always tag me at Debby with a Y. Sometimes the discussion gets moving along, and if you don't tag me, I may not get a notification on the comment. If you are working on upper body, you've had challenges with it, you've had a setback, like I said, there's lots of ways that these exercises or any exercises perhaps you've been working with can be modified to just cater to whatever your short-term situation is. So 9 times out of 10 with upper body, it's about moving and feeling better before we get into some of the mean stuff. As I said, many of us are carrying tension, stress, especially towards the end of the day. If you're sitting in front of a computer all day, or there's all kinds of things that contribute to physical stress in these areas. So be mindful of using your plate as a wellness tool just as much as a fitness tool if you're not now, especially if you're dealing with chronic issues. Things like neuropathy, swelling, things in the upper body. There are ways that you can target in a seated basis, but the more you can work and improve that range of motion to get down on the ground and take advantage of some direct applications with your hands and your arms on the plate, the more benefit you are going to receive in the long run. So if you need some guidance, there's lots of sessions that way too. There is a holiday sale going on with Life Pro. Some items have been extended up to 50% off with Life Pro and a free gift. So make sure that you check that out if you're still on the fence and making some decisions as far as what you should be getting for Christmas or things that you've been thinking about. There is a featured item today. Very cool. The Aliva Red Light Therapy Belt is 50% off today. That's a featured item. Considering I don't think you're going to see this get much better. I am going to drop a link to the sale. If you haven't, if you're an Amazon shopper, a lot of times you tend to gravitate towards Amazon, and absolutely Life Pro is available on Amazon, but they also do have just some special items that you can't get for the same pricing that you do through them directly as the supplier. So I recommend just checking out the link that I've dropped in there. That's the link to Life Pro's current sale. The Aliva Red Belt is on 50% off today. So if that's something you've been considering, even though instinctively we're talking about upper body today, the red light belt is awesome along the waist. I love using it on my shoulder. I kind of wrap it this way around the shoulder or that way around the shoulder. It's a really good tool for that. So if you are dealing with shoulder issues, elbow issues, neck issues, red light is a really nice way to just alleviate some of that pain. The belt also has infrared heat. So heat is very soothing, very relaxing. That's kind of my go-to, whether I should be or not. But I do like heat. That's kind of my go-to. So that's just an idea for upper body. If you have an Aleva Red belt now, or it's something that you've been considering, it's a really versatile tool, and probably one of the better wearables if you are thinking of considering of red light. I've wrapped it around my knee. I've wrapped it around my back, my neck, my shoulders. Again, you're only limited by your imagination, and it's got lots of ways that you can ramp up your routine. And you can even wear it while you're doing your vibration plate exercise. Combined therapies. If there are no questions today, I want to thank those of you that have joined me, and I appreciate your patience. My apologies for being a little bit late today on the technical side. I will see you again next week. 5 moves in 5 minutes is my theme for the next couple of weeks. And I hope some of these exercises have been beneficial for you today. I look forward to holding your hand into the new year and hopefully get you motivated now to get into good habits early. It's just an easier way to cruise through the new year than all the pressure and stress of all those New Year's resolutions. So have a great rest of your week. Don't work too hard. And thanks for joining me today.